Data-driven.
Hello, everyone. This is Data-Driven Chat, and today I'm very happy to introduce Admond Lee, who has kindly agreed to talk to us today. So Admond is an expert in data science, social and marketing analytics. He also a speaker and writer, and in his occupation, he helps companies and agencies with data and data-driven problems. Hello, Admond.
Hi, Ganna. Nice to talk to you today.
Thanks a lot for finding the time.
Thanks for the invite. Yeah.
So to kick off our discussion, I want to ask you, how did you become interested in data science? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey into this?
Yeah, sure. This is very interesting because the whole journey, the whole story started, I think, 2 or 3 years back when I first joined CERN, research student program back then in June 2017 for about 2 months. So for those who may not know, CERN is a research institute that basically is a research institute that does particle physics. They have their own accelerators, random particles here and there, trying to collect them and get some insights, right, about particle physics stuff. So back then I did some analysis and simulation on the particle physics research projects using their cloud computing, in one of their biggest experiments over there. So within this period, I was introduced to a lot of different things, namely machine learning and big data analytics by the lectures over there, the workshops, or even the research project itself. So I was very fascinated because I never heard of these terms before back in my university days. So I was quite mind blown by how all these, machine learning techniques could be used to classify and detect all those various small particles to an extraordinary precision with such a huge amount of data. Basically, it's a petabyte of data, right? So the amount and the volume of data was huge. I was amazed by how all this data could actually be used to give us insights, and drive business values for companies out there in the markets. So I was very interested in understanding all these business problems. I'm quite interested in collecting, visualizing this data to the stage of building machine learning algorithm, fine-tuning the models, and really solving real-world problems. So these are all the things that I really enjoy doing, and I really find the satisfaction, so to speak, the fulfillment of tackling all these challenges to solve all these complex problems using data science. And this is how, actually I become interested in data science itself. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, physics background, that's one of the avenues that is not kind of, people do not realize that you could, do physics and then translate it to data science. That's awesome. So looking back at your career so far, what is, if you had to pick one most important thing that you have done, something that you're really proud of, what would that be?
In fact, a lot of things that I would say, but to choose the top one, I would say my writing journey. So I started writing my data science experience, my thoughts, all this back then. I think 2 years back, I started writing on Medium, one of the biggest writing platform. And I started writing in a publication called Towards Data Science. Right, it's one of the biggest data science publications out there on Medium, and I started sharing my experience, my learning journey, even my mistakes with others, to not just to document my journey, but also to help others like aspiring data scientists on how to get into this field. So a lot of my articles resonated with a lot of people out there. I received a lot of so-called thank you messages from all of them. I was very glad and grateful that I really make an impact, by just writing my articles and putting out there to share with others and to really give back my knowledge and experience to the data science community. So this is something that I think is one of the achievements that I really treasure during my career, and I really think this is quite important to me. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. So tell us about what are you doing now? So basically, what are you currently working on? I appreciate that you might not be able to tell us everything, but just in a nutshell,
Yes.
maybe you could share something that makes you really excited about, and yeah. So what keeps you awake at night?
All right, I think right now, because I think data science is not just a hype anymore. It has been applied in various industries. So really, in particular, at my current company, I'm working on some projects related to smart manufacturing and AI. So essentially, we are working towards industry 4.0, so to speak. So we are working on various projects to have our manufacturing line, our business values to increase more values in a way through data science approach, and also to reduce the business cost, to increase our manufacturing efficiency using all the data that we have in our companies, our manufacturing lines itself. So a lot of exciting projects are going on, and we are quite excited about it towards this. And I think data science is now being widely used, especially in manufacturing industries. And we are very proud to say that we are at the forefront of it to really help more people and also our companies. Yeah, and this makes me really excited about it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think data science applications to manufacturing is absolutely amazing field, because you could help produce, I don't know, new types of cars, driverless cars and all these types of things that are really, really fascinating, and do a lot of other things that are probably people think of like science fiction or something like this, but yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people would want to have your job. I mean, that's awesome. So a lot of people who are listening to us are aspiring data scientists, so they really want to get into the field. So as someone who works in data science, can you give some tips to people who want to get into this field? What do you think is the most important thing to remember when you want to work in data science?
Well, I tend to, this is a very good question, by the way, because I receive a lot of these questions from most people who want to go into this field as well. So usually how I break it down is through two things. One is technical skills, and the other one is soft skills, right? So usually how I would suggest is that, sorry, don't be too fixated on learning everything in data science, right? Because this field is evolving pretty fast. So simply that we can't learn all the things once, and this thing change every day. So I would say that people who want to go into this field should learn the fundamentals of technical skills, namely the math parts, the statistics parts, the programming parts, right? These three things. And also the soft skills part involve storytelling skills. So this is one of the important skills that I believe is really, really important as a data scientist, storytelling skills. I will explain why later on. Second thing of soft skills would be teamwork. Yeah, because you have to work together with different stakeholders, different team members across different departments all day long, typically in your job. So, so these are the main important things, but simply that having these skills would not help you get a job in this field in reality. So the next thing I would suggest is once you have slowly built your technical and soft skills in this space, you need to build your portfolio in data science. And portfolio could be a lot of things, not just your resume. You need to work on some relevant internships, right? Data science internships. Maybe you should have your own personal projects that you are excited about, that you want to solve certain problems. You build your models on it and you share your results with the world out there, right? And through writing articles, one of my channels, and through podcasts like what you are doing now, and even through YouTube channels. So all these are various ways for people to build their portfolio as a data scientist, as well as to build their personal brand as an established authority in data science. And this is one of the most important ways that I believe to really get people to know you and to get people to approach you to really help you get jobs, in this field. And this is in a way that to help people, aspiring data scientists, to get into this field faster. Yeah, just my opinion on this. Yeah.
Awesome. So basically, here's the advice from Admond Lee. So you have to become kind of all around data scientist, so you have to think of all types of skills, right? About hard skills, soft skills.
Yes.
Also thinking about how you're gonna publicize yourself, right, and present yourself and get recognition, you know. So that's extremely helpful. I would like to kind of go a little bit deeper into kind of business applications, because you touched on that. So in terms of data science impact on business, do you think data science is important for business? And do you think it made a significant change to the way we think about business in the last few years?
I think great question, by the way. Talking about business, I think one of the particular sectors, you know, that I'm particularly excited about would be in the marketing space. But of course, data science are kind of affecting lots of businesses across different industries. But in particular, marketing, I see there's a big change over there, right? Because right now, in marketing space itself, it's slowly moving towards data-driven marketing approach. Back then, you know, during the traditional marketing, people just give out flyers, newspaper, publicize their ads through televisions, right, to different things. But at the end of the day, marketers or even companies themselves, they're struggling or having some headache on how to track the ROI. Okay, the ROI is here means return on investment. Can be sales, can be number of likes, whatever metrics that they want to track, right? So they are facing this difficulty to track this kind of ROI from different channels. It could be online channels, could be offline channels. Even now today, at the junctures of our speaking, marketing is still facing these challenges to track the ROI. And I think data is the currency here to really empower this space, the marketing space, to really empower people with data-driven approach, right? By tracking all the data on different platforms and consolidated them all together, running some analytics and giving them the ROI tracking, build some predictive modeling, etc., to really give transparency, to really give the power on people who know, you know, what they should do next, instead of just blindly shooting here and there without getting the real ROI or improving ROI itself. So I think data science here plays a very important part, especially, you know, to understand customer behavior, right? Because we have to know what our customers are thinking, otherwise they don't buy from us. They want to understand the customer behavior, they want to build some models to recommend the right products at the right place at the right time. So all these involve heavy modeling behind the scene, which people don't really see, right? And also to implement these models, these machine learning models, also called AI, at scale, because we're going to launch it in a large audience online channels, right? So these things could involve lots of heavy computing. And I believe here, cloud computing will be the future that we are aiming towards to run these models automatically. So I think data science itself, especially in marketing space, is really exciting. And I mainly also pay attention to what is going on right now in this industry and see, you know, how I can help in this space. It's cool.
Awesome. So, you know, if we talk with kind of, again, talking about people who are thinking about career in data science, and you just mentioned that probably it's a good idea to get into digital marketing and marketing analytics, which is exciting. So, so usually when people kind of are thinking about getting into data science, they normally are considering how important is it to be able to code, right? So how important is the ability to code, and how can people develop this ability? So where do they start? Which languages they should focus on? So how should they get information? Should they learn by doing, or should they you know, get into some online courses or some
yes. I think there are a few ways of doing this, and I also think coding is very important because it's the tool, right? Kind of like a tool for us to solve problems out there. And when I first started learning coding, I was very frustrated because I started reading all the documentations out there, how to use the syntax, how to use literally everything. And when I really first started coding, I realized that I didn't know anything at all. So I was very frustrated in the first place. And the first advice here is for those people who want to learn coding at the first place, again, don't overlearn in the beginning. Just learn the basic syntax, right? And start practicing either through some projects, online courses, some projects, or tackling some coding questions like lead code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you are talking about the language that people should learn or focus first at this point of time, I would recommend Python.
Mm-hmm.
Python is one of the most popular general programming language out there, be it data science, data visualization, statistic tool, whatever. And this is just my preference. You can choose. A lot of people debate about either I should use Python or R. This is one of the most popular debates out there, right? R or Python. So at the end of the day, it depends on the problems that you're solving. And I think Python, because one of the reasons why it is so popular is because of the huge community behind that's supporting the package. So I think Python is a good way to start. And how to learn this is through taking online courses. Personally, I took a few Udemy courses on how to use Python to solve problems, and with a lot of practical exercises to learn by doing, like what you mentioned. So I really believe that coding should be about learning by doing. And I think this will help people, especially beginners, to really appreciate and to learn it at a faster pace. Yeah. So this is just some of my thoughts on coding parts. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this advice. We obviously cannot avoid the topic of COVID. It has affected everybody's life, so we're all suffering from, the current restrictions. A lot of countries have very strict quarantines and all that.
Yes.
So what do you think is the role that data science could play in solving the current crisis? Does it have much to contribute, and where do you see the impact of data science being most pronounced in trying to solve the current crisis? So can we help as data scientists, or should we kind of stand back and let people who know a lot about viruses solve the problem? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, this is also one of the main questions that I see online. A lot of people are debating, right? A lot of data scientists are solving these problems using some data set from somewhere else, essentially using data science approach. But to me, I think, of course, data science can potentially help solve the current crisis only by working together with the healthcare experts, with the epidemiologists, together in this space. And I believe that data scientists alone can't solve this, because this involves a lot of professional and experienced medical background in this space to really make sure the models that we have built make sense in that particular context, right? For people who don't know much about this space, let's say I'm just a generic data scientist, I analyze some results, some data, give you some results, and perhaps these results just don't make sense in their context. And even though the results show me, 95% accuracy, it's cool, is able to detect the COVID-19 accurately, but does it really make sense? Maybe we should step back and look at the big picture and see if there's any bias, right? Any hidden assumption behind the model itself. And this is very dangerous if you take the assumption wrongly. If the model learns something that is away from the medical context, I think this is quite exciting but dangerous at the same time. So we should work together with the people in this space to understand the model better before we do anything. Yes.
So right. I mean, I think there is a lot of debate about this, and I think people are a little bit polarized now in the data science community, because some of them say, all these things that are happening are just. I even heard the term COVID porn. So in the sense that people are posting a lot of stuff.
Oh my God.
But like yourself, I think that the sensible voice is saying that you need to collaborate with the epidemiologists and people who know a lot about healthcare And I think your previous advice about soft skills would be very helpful here, right? Because in order
yes, teamwork.
these people, you really need to have good communication skills.
Exactly.
So let's just broaden the scope a little bit. So we talked about, COVID and how data science could potentially help COVID. But what do you think is the future of data science as a field? So, and particularly in application to business, how will it develop in the next 5 years? So what is the next cool thing? What is the next hot thing?
Well, there are a lot of things that's becoming exciting. And personally, from what I see so far, I believe that in general, the business landscape will gradually move towards what I call, or what other people call as data economy.
Mm-hmm.
Data economy, where data will be heavily utilized and really rely on together with the domain knowledge. Again, we talk about, the medical background for the COVID-19. So I think the domain knowledge here plays an important role, not just the data, domain knowledge. And last but not least, the computing resources to solve business problems. So we have data, we need to have the domain knowledge, and we have to analyze the data at large scale. So we need the computing resources to solve these business problems. And combining these three things together, and this will slowly evolve into what we mentioned about the data economy part. And in future, I believe that more and more businesses will slowly embrace automation, not just manufacturing, but in a very broad sense. Could be many other industries. They will start embracing automation, and a lot of employees, therefore, will need to upskill themselves with require soft skills, like we mentioned, that cannot be replaced by AI.
Okay.
Right. So once automation comes in, yeah, exactly. Once automation comes in, of course, a lot of jobs will be lost, will be replaced by automation. But again, I still believe that there will still be a lot of opportunities out there that people can make use of, that people can work on it, just that they need to upskill themselves. And in terms of the breakthrough in data science, I would say more breakthrough on 3 parts. The natural language processing part, the NLP, text processing. There'll be more and more advanced models coming out, either maybe from research institutes, maybe from Facebook, from Google, we don't know, right? And the second part is on the image recognition. Yeah, that we are able to analyze the images with a large scale of data set running on clusters, and to really recognize the image. And this applies to many other applications out there. And third one would be the reinforcement learning parts, whereby the models will start slowly learning and slowly evolving without the intervention of human. And this can all be further applied on various industries, which I believe these 3 breakthroughs will be more and more evolving in the next 5 years.
Okay. Well,
yes.
So you mentioned data economy at the beginning of your answer, and going kind of deeper into this topic, I want to ask you about ethical considerations. So I know you are based in Singapore, and I know that Singapore now has a plan to have surveillance, like heavy surveillance. At least I don't know whether that's already in place, but I know there was talk about it in 2019, that basically as soon as you land in Singapore, you will be constantly kind of followed by cameras. What I want to ask is, from practitioner's point of view, when you are working on various tools and tech that you are producing, how often do you have the time to kind of stop and think about ethics and responsibility? Is it something that, you feel is kind of well defined for this field, or is it something that needs to be more precise? So some maybe more precise guidelines from lawyers or from ethicists that need to kind of enter the field.
This is a very cool question. I think this also brings me back to the discussion between Jack Ma and Elon Musk back then, a few months back, right, on this topic as well. And in my opinion, I think, of course, so-called AI here at this stage, it's not intelligent enough, at least to defeat humans' intelligence. And at this stage, I think it still has certain bias or assumption behind whatever AI that you may call it. And there should be some hidden bias or something, some patterns that the model has learned behind the scene. And this is what I call as an assumption that the model has learned. And therefore, I think ethics and responsibility play a huge part here. And in order to make sure things are done ethically and responsibility in practice, I think there should be some or certain degree of human intervention when we are building this so-called AI. For example, this I think one of the most popular examples out there. Back then, I think Amazon built an AI tool to hire people, but they had to shut down because it was showing bias against women. And this is very surprising to a lot of people out there, because this AI concluded that men were preferable to hire to be part of the job, and this reportedly downgraded the resumes that contained the words women and filtered out the candidates who had attended, women-only colleges. I think behind this AI tool, there was a huge hidden bias and assumption behind that people only found out after a few years. And the so-called AI now, I don't think is intelligent enough to do the things automatically, because it has just learned some patterns that we may not know, just that we as a human, we have to intervene. We have to have some certain degree of human intervention to really ensure the ethics, the responsibilities are carried out by the AI models. And it needs to make sense in any context that we are focusing on. In practice.
Thank you so much for this perspective. We came to the last question in the interview, and this is a traditional question that I ask everyone. Usually people have problems with this one, because the restriction is that, so the question is, if I ask you to recommend just one book and one film, what would they be? And the usual problem is that people say, oh, there are so many things. But if you had to just pick one book and one film, what would be your recommendations?
Wow, this really makes me think a little bit. I mean, of course, there are a lot of books and films out there. If I were to choose only one book, right, I would choose Alibaba. The book name itself is Alibaba Dash, the house that Jack Ma built. All right, so this is the book name. Why? I started reading this book like half a year back, and I was very amazed by the grit and determination by Jack Ma that carried out. And especially there was a part that I was pretty amazed of, is how he and his whole team were able to beat eBay out from China. Using their teamwork. There was nothing special about the team, but they had something special where they were able to work together, that they were able to provide values to the people in China through the e-commerce platform called Taobao, through Alibaba platform. And I think they were, Jack Ma and his team itself, they will really bring a huge value to the people worldwide, not just China, either by e-commerce, cloud computing, a lot of things. And I think they're doing a pretty good job, and that inspired me a lot just by reading this book.
Awesome. How about film?
Film, this is a bit special. I would say my favorite film is called Life is Beautiful. Have you watched this? Life is Beautiful. It talks about, it's an Italian movie, right? It was talks about the family in World War II, that they happened to be in the Nazi concentration camp, and this father used his optimism and selflessness to protect his son in the concentration camp, to really help us see that life is really beautiful, and we need to be grateful for little things and be happy with it. And I really that inspires me a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a fantastic film. So yeah, thanks a lot for these recommendations, and thank you so much, Admond, for finding the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it, and good luck with everything that you are doing. Sounds incredibly exciting.
Thanks, Ganna. Great to be here. Great to talk to you, and all the best to you as well. In whatever things that you are doing, all the best. Yeah. Thank you for the invite. Really appreciate it.